Today we have another very, very special guest, Miss Sonya Hutton, and the mother of 2025 offensive line commit Sean Hutton. Sonya, how are you doing
Yes,
on this Sunday afternoon?
doing fantastic. Good afternoon. How about yourself?
Oh, I just got done with church and a little afternoon lunch, and so now we get to enjoy some nice 95-degree weather from inside.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, we always start this off with the genesis stories of the kids, and because this is from a parent's perspective. I mean, there's so many cool things that people like to hear about, and so going back in the early years of Sean, like a lot of parents, they see their kids start to become a little bit more athletic than the people around them. Start going, "Ooh, I'm excited about this." But from a mother's perspective,
Yes.
there's a lot of other thoughts that go into that. So when was the first time that you saw Sean kind of starting to become a little bit more athletic than like some of the kids around him?
I would say it was very early on. Sean started playing football, tackle football, when he was in the first grade. And that was largely because he was bigger than everyone at the time, obviously. Of course, kids catch up. And so, we put him in football because he was kind of, a little uncomfortable with being a big guy. And so he really started to enjoy it, right off. He welcomed because his size was celebrated, if you will. And then probably about the third grade, I remember him saying one day after a game, he was running and he was like, "Mom, I'm headed off." And I'm like, "Where are you headed?" He's like, "I'm going to be playing football." I'm like, "Where are you playing football?" And he was like, "I'm catching my jet." He was like, "I'm really into playing football." He's catching the jet. He's going to play for some team. And so that was pretty exciting.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So that's probably when about the third grade was when I realized, okay, Sean really has an interest in football.
So for that, was he, was he lining up in like a running back at that point, or did they put him directly on the line because he's a little bit bigger than everybody?
Yeah. Sean never had the opportunity to run the ball because he was always over the weight. So he was but he played both sides as a lineman. So offensive lineman as well as on the defensive line.
So as fathers, we like to see, you've got a bigger kid, you start thinking like, oh, our kid can dominate these other boys out here. As a mom, you look at it and you're like, let's just be careful. Let's not get hurt. Let's not do anything. So how is that mental process for you?
So when he was younger, I wasn't as concerned because he was bigger. So I think everyone else was more concerned with their kid going up against my son. But as he got older, you do kind of clench yourself, brace your nerves for when he's out there. We just kind of pray that, he and all the players out there are safe and don't get hurt. But, I just tell him to be smart. So play smart, be smart, and respect the game. So I'm pretty competitive. I like sports. And so tell them just, hey, respect the game, respect your fellow players, and everything kind of works out.
What was the first time that you saw Sean out there, going crazy, being a boy, and he did something that you were like, okay, he's always been a little bit bigger, but now he might just be on a different level?
Yeah. I would say probably getting around the fifth, sixth grade. He was playing in a rec league, and I remember distinctly he was on defense, and he went in for a sack, but he came out on the other side with the ball, and he started running. That was the first time he actually ran the ball, and I thought, okay, we're looking at someone different. I would say that was the first glimpse, and then he was invited around that same time to be a part of the U.S. national team. And they had some tryouts in the spring and had a workout, and they had a game, and it was at the Star here in Frisco. And it was really at that point seeing him execute that I thought he's got something special.
Yeah. Well, you guys are playing in the DFW area, and I mean, obviously the talent is massive. I mean, obviously you're playing at the Star for like a sixth grader, right? So,
Right.
looking at how do you process like comparing Sean to like some of the other kids, and was that an easy thing for you, or were you like looking for ways to help him out more, or were you just like, no, my kid's definitely better than that kid, he should be playing that spot instead?
So I'm that parent who's always like, be sure you're working hard. Um, Trust yourself, trust your coaches. Sometimes it's not about being better than. I'm not that parent that's like, oh, Sean has to be better than somebody else. I think that I always just believe that what's for him is for him. And as long as you apply yourself, you're dedicated to your hard work, in the end, you'll be rewarded accordingly. So, and I think it's all paid off.
100%.
He's a hard worker. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And I mean, this is not in the flow of the interview, but I mean, Sean's
Yes.
also a great kid. Like, and through all the conversations that I've had with him, like, I had to finally convince him to stop calling me Mr. Cooper several times, because he called me Mr. Cooper for so long. And I was like, man, just call me Cooper, just call me Eric or Guy. I don't use anything. No formality here, but yeah, you've got a great kid on your hands.
Thank you. Yeah, he is a great kid. He's you know, he's driven. He's very committed. I don't have to, unlike a lot of parents, I don't have to worry about waking him up in the morning. He's usually up. He's driving, of course, now, so he comes in and gives me my hug and kiss goodbye, and he's off to school. And I'm very fortunate about that, because there was that time when he and his brother would be relying on me for transportation. So that's fantastic. So he's up and out, and on Sundays he was up early this morning, goes to church. He's very active in the mix at Fellowship Church in Grapevine, and so just overall a good, well-rounded person. Yeah. So.
Definitely. That's great. It's a great church too. My uncle goes out there, so he lives in North Richland Hills. And but high school starts up. We got high school starting. Obviously, that talent level starts getting bigger. And living in Texas, football is just so much bigger than a lot of other states, because I mean, it kind of becomes that church, that religion. So when he started in on the, playing for a potential JV varsity team, what changes did you go through as a parent? What changes did you see that he, maybe took, really in stride, and what stuff did he, really just kind of take him a few minutes to kind of catch the drift?
Yeah. So, Sean's freshman year, he was the only freshman on the varsity roster, but he played the JV one. And I know you've talked to other players, and they kind of joined when their sophomore year on varsity. So I knew there that Sean had something special. And I attribute that to his hard work and dedication. But I was really concerned because obviously, even though he is a big guy, a lot of older players were much more mature, more seasoned in their thoughts around the game, and probably a lot more physical than what he had been in contact with prior to. So I was just really wanting him to understand that, okay, yeah, you may have been a big man in a small pond. Now you're a big man amongst a lot of bigger, stronger, knowledgeable men. So just be careful. And then also recognize that, I remember one particular scenario when he walked into the varsity locker room. Of course, that's sacred amongst the upperclassmen. And his big brother was there. And so that was helpful to kind of have someone to kind of balance the room, if you will. And I remember him coming home, and it's like, this guy was like, I hope you don't think you're going to come in and take my spot. And I was very pleased with his response. He said, I'm not here to take your spot. I'm here to claim my spot. And that's the right attitude to have. It's not about, displacing anyone. Obviously, it's only a number of positions on the field, but it's really about, stepping up and owning and claiming what you want to do. That's not just in football, but in life. So.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's so many crossovers between the athletics and then the life. And that's another reason why, I do these interviews, is to hear about life, and just that, because a lot of kids, when they're really, really good athletes, I'm dealing with it with my daughter. This is her first year playing, 9v9 on soccer. And so she's always been the big fish in the smaller one. Now she gets to jump in there. And so, I've seen some of those things, and it's, then at that point, some of your parenting really kind of rises to the top when so that's an awesome response. That's one to be proud of.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So
he developed some fun friendships. Anytime that I've talked to Sean, he's been talking to, Xavier Puno had been over hanging out with him
Mm-hmm.
and talking with him, and then Mike had been around, and so it's no secret at this point that him and Fasusi are really really good friends, and they're actually going to be playing side by side. So when you see him in high school, Michael comes in, and this is a giant of an individual.
Yeah.
How did you see that kind of relationship, start up and go into effect?
Well, I remember their sophomore year, Mike had joined the offensive line. And again, they were both probably the junior team members. And so both being the youngest guys, they kind of bonded together. The good thing is about offensive linemen, most of them are very friendly. They're like the gentle giants of the world. Yeah. So they kind of embrace them. But, Sean kind of embraced Mike, I think, because Sean had been playing football a lot longer and in a lot more competitive scenarios. And Mike had really just gotten going good because he'd only been, here in the States, not for very long at the time, and kind of still new to football. They would kind of hang out, kind of work with each other to just kind of, elevate each other, to bring each other up and along the way so that they could compete. And what's interesting, I always tease, I said, if folks knew how close that offensive line was back then, I never would let that secret out. They probably would have had that entire Division I football squad.
Yeah.
Because they all have always sat around. They come over sometimes and talk about how awesome it would have been to, continue to play together from the very start. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, but Mike's a sweet kid, and Sean, they enjoy each other. So they were just hanging out yesterday, always eating somewhere, but hanging out.
That's my next question was you obviously, like, you're feeding one, you got another guy, in his older brother, and then sometimes all these bigger kids come over. How do you handle that as a parent? Like, hey, Mom, I want to bring over the, the boys to eat. I mean, do you just go to Sam's and, take 2 carts with you?
Well, it depends on what we're doing. So sometimes I'll just order pizza, to be truthful. But a lot of times Sean is never consistent saying, hey, somebody's coming over. So they just kind of ramble and get whatever. But it is difficult because you have a lot of hefty appetites. So to give you a funny story, Mike was in a Under Armour camp, and we all went with him. I took him down there, and we stopped out in South Lake to get something to eat. I think it was at it wasn't BJ's, Boomer Jacks, and they had like the 2 for $24, and it was 3 of them. And I said, well, you guys can get the 2 for $24. And they were like, we have to split one, or do we get to eat one? I said, well, okay, you guys can all have your own. You should have seen the excitement. So they were, like I said, 3 offensive linemen. They all had their 2 for $24s. But Mike, I think he cleaned the plate for all of them, because whatever left they all had left over, he was like, oh, I could handle that. So, yes. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Well, Sean jumped on board with the Sooners, obviously decently earlier than Mike had. As a mom, like, did you foresee some of the pressure that was going to be put on him to answer questions from a lot of people, like, hey, what's Mike going to do? And did that take any shine away from, like, the fact that he was now going to be someone that fans should be excited about also?
I think there were a lot of questions, a lot of calls from different folks inquiring, which was interesting. But I don't think Sean felt like it took away from him. He knew and recognized that all of the publicity that surrounded Mike, largely because of, his recruiting ranking and the publicity he had been getting. But when we're there at the campus and with the staff at OU, even without Mike, it's always been about Sean. So that was a highlight for us as part of that recruiting process. But Sean's just always been, hey, this is my brother. It's not about a him versus me. And, I'm going to have my shine. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I know that people, PG, myself, Jay, we were pretty early on looking at Sean, watching his film and being excited about
Mm-hmm.
him as a person. So,
Yes.
through a lot of people that we talked to, like that was that's one thing that I was worried about for Sean personally, because, it's hard from my aspect of it, of learning these kids, like developing these relationships, but then also like letting them have their experience and their process and everything. So,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
that's one that we try to respect throughout the whole process. Is not,
Mm-hmm.
I think in my interview with him, that was one thing I was like, hey man, I'm not going to ask you anything about Mike. And he was like, no, you should. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to, man. I want it to be about you. So, just everything that you say, it's reflected in all my encounters with him.
Yes, no, absolutely. And like I said, Mike's a great kid. I mean, he and Sean talk often. They talk about not just, football, but life in general, what they want out of life. And I'm glad they're both really grounded, because I, sometimes get concerned that it's the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
but I mean, they're both great kids. And I know the night before Mike's commitment, Sean had taken him over to the barbershop to get his hair, cut. And then they came back over here and ate. And so I told him, I said, you're going to pick OU, aren't you? But I wouldn't dare get out and tell anyone. He just kind of gave me a wink and smile. But Sean was like, I don't want to know. Don't say anything out loud. I want to be surprised and excited with everyone else. So, yeah. But I know deep down inside, Sean was, secretly hoping that he would choose OU.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about that recruitment for Sean, because,
Mm-hmm.
he went through it a little bit of a different, because there's two different experiences between Mike and Sean.
Yes.
Sean started getting a lot of attention. I mean, I'm assuming that people were watching, Mike and seeing Sean going out there and doing the business that he does.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first time that you got called and recruiting kind of started up for you guys as a family?
Yes. And so I'll start back and say, when Sean came into high school, we had a lot of interest. He was on the Under Armour All-American squad, freshman All-American squad. And so he had a lot of early attention. So folks would talk to us about, the potential and his potential, and would have us come out for game day visits and things like that. But nothing real solid in terms of, hey, we're ready for you to, sign your name on the dotted line. So I would say in general, it was relatively slow. And I think a lot slower than what he had expected, but there were a lot of things that were communicated to us that was impacting it. So obviously you have kids with the extra years of eligibility from the COVID, span. And then even with my older son, I remember us going to a camp and the coach telling them that, hey, we used to take 30 high schoolers. We're only taking 10, 15.
Yeah.
And then now with the portal, it dropped tremendously. So coming into this year, Big Brother played a very instrumental role, along with the coaching staff at Louisville, just trying to help him understand, okay, this is where we are. This is, here's some things that let's approach to try to really drum it up. And I remember we were in a parking lot going to a basketball game for one of his friends, and he had a call with Coach B. And Coach B was very transparent. That's one of the reasons that I really have a lot of respect for the program. And he said, hey, you're in a position of one. You're being recruited at center. You only need one center. We already have a guy that we recruited, which is Owen. And Sean, he answered all the questions that Sean had, and Sean put out there. He said, what about the opportunity to be a preferred walk-on? And at that time, Coach B was like, I'd love for you to be a preferred walk-on. And I don't think it was something that they'd had thought about at the time. I know that, Coach Venables doesn't, just widely hand those out.
Yeah.
But at the time, Coach B was like, I really believe you're a scholarship player. And so, let's see how things go. And so other schools started, picking up. He started picking up some D3, D2 opportunities. And then, of course, we were still visiting, going up with Mike as well, taking Mike up to OU. So, the coaches there really got a chance to get to know him. And so that's just kind of how it evolved. I would say it was not the easiest, being very transparent. And I say that because I think a lot of parents think, oh, I have my kid is good.
Yeah.
It's just gonna come easy. It wasn't easy. And there was a lot of, parenting, like you said, that goes along with that, trying to keep them inspired and motivated. And just reminding them that, hey, when it's your time, it's your time. So it just so happened that on that one visit, like I said, he had stayed in contact with Coach B. When we got there, that's the picture where it's Mike's in the front and me and Sean in the back and the whole coaching staff. I think at that time they knew what they were interested in Sean. They communicated that they liked his speed, his size, how he executed. He was quick off the ball. And so we went through that whole visit, and we were having dinner. And I remember one of the hostess came over and said, hey, Coach Venables would like to see you in his office. He'd already been speaking with Mike. Hardy was there with us. And that's when, we went into the office and he talked to him. I was very inspired and motivated by him. And he gave him the little poker chip. He said, you only can get this here. And so he just wanted him to know that, he was going to be treated just like every other player. That, it's just really one of those, things, you can only have so many scholarships, but you didn't want to miss out on the opportunity. He told him that he liked the spirit. He thought that he would come in working hard. He shared a lot of his life story, which was very impactful and connecting for us. And we were just excited when he just, extended him the offer. So that was just a really awesome experience, to be in his office, and his office is beautiful. It was an amazing place to be. And then, of course, to have that, I know Sean was like, oh my gosh, he felt like he was going to cry. And Mike was there, Hardy was there. They all got a picture. We got a picture. It was just a great overall experience. So, yeah.
I mean, that's right there. If you're watching this right now, I mean, that's why we do this, is hearing those things, hearing the spirit of the staff. Again, it's a way of life. I think, a previous interview, he said, I said, is it a pitch? And he said, no, it's a way of life. Like, that's how they live, is that way. And so that obviously connects with how you run your family and how your family sees things. So when you're about to watch your baby go off to, big boy college, and it's letting go is going to be hard, but how much easier it is it to let go when you know that he's going to that staff and with some of these family members, these extended family members around him?
Absolutely. So, we talk a lot about when we go to the visits, myself, even with Sean and Mike, what do you feel when you walk away? And one of the things that I don't think a lot of recruiting staff understand is the importance of the parental connection, and how important it is for you to feel comfortable with the whole process, the people, the environment. And I would say that, for me, Coach B, Coach Venables are fantastic. I think that I feel like they care more about the man, the individual, than they do the player. Obviously, because they can get great players from everywhere and anywhere. So I just kind of felt like, when that time comes, which I'm not jumping over joy, but I'm happy.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm, releasing him to folks who care about him as a person, and that they'll do their best to take care of him. I mean, Coach B's been fantastic. He shared his number with me. He texts on a very regular basis, and, I just feel like I have a relationship there. And that was a relationship that the other schools that were recruiting Sean, that gave him opportunities, didn't do. They didn't connect in a way that made me feel comfortable. And I think that when the staff makes you feel comfortable as a parent, it helps you facilitate that relationship and that confidence in your child to say, okay, you're going to be good where you're going. So, you did a fantastic job with that.
Now, got a question that some people find funny. Have you ever seen Coach B smile? Because he doesn't smile a ton.
I have seen him smile a little bit. When there's something funny that comes up or something, yeah. He's a really, really nice person. I had the opportunity to meet his beautiful wife and daughter.
Yeah.
You know, he smiled a few times, talking about, his past, and he connects well with the whole family.
Yeah.
I know when he came on campus, my older son was here, and James got a chance to go up and meet him, and since then, he's got a great memory. He was asking him about his own process and him at school playing football, and so he's just a really genuine, really good person. My older son was like, I'm impressed with the fact that he not only just remembered who I was, he remembered what I was doing in our conversation. And, he said, maybe it's part of the process, but I kind of feel like it's more of him as the person that, not only is he taking an interest in my brother, he really wants to know who he is. And obviously being the whole family, knowing the family gives you a better glimpse into who Sean is. So.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So going further into Sean, gets tweeted out the other day that he's a team captain, and I saw that tweet, and through the relationship that I've connected with him, I immediately was like, I felt like my kid, got voted team captain. So, how did you feel when he called you up and he said, "Hey, Mom, they made me a team captain"?
Oh, he was excited. I was excited for him. I always, encourage him to be the very best that he can be as a person. And, have reminded him that now that you're an upperclassman, it's important to, reiterate or foster the culture and environment where you are. I mean, obviously, he's been there with a lot of, leaders from the years past that have done very well at different schools. And so I told him, I said, now, is your time to kind of lay your stamp on the program and, bring forward some of those attributes that the other leaders that you admired the most had, and share that with the younger guys who never experienced that, and lay put your stamp on it as well, and continue leading out front. So it's been great. I'm very happy for him. I know he's spoken to the group about coming out to fellowship and the mix, and I'm just excited for him. I mean, there's no words for that. I'm just really happy and very proud of him at the same time.
So season starts up here soon. He's on his swan song, right? His last year in high school. What goals has he kind of set up and talked to you about for this final season?
Well, I believe that, for this final season, he really just wants to make sure that he continues to evolve and develop. He's shifting back to guard this season, where he was historically before he moved to center. And so his goal is really just to, again, lead from out front, just grow and continue to expand his knowledge, the different positions across the offensive line. And just, have fun. I think the biggest thing is just having fun this last rodeo, and hopefully we'll make the playoff rounds and go far this season.
Keep it going. Now,
keep the traditions going. Yes.
100%. OU heads over. Now you're part of the OU family, so now your life is a little bit tied to that on Saturdays also. Do you guys have visits planned up to come see some of the games this year?
Oh, absolutely. So we do plan on coming up for some games. My eyebrows go up for the Tennessee game. Not only is it an SEC game, but I'm an alum from the University of Tennessee, but you didn't know that.
I think Sean shared that with me off the side, but yeah.
Okay,
That's going to be a big one.
It's going to be a big one. So I have a shirt made that says my heart's divided, but my mind's decided on OU. So
I love it.
So I just wanted to know I do still have a little volunteer in my heart for when they're playing OU, but when they're not playing OU, I'll be cheering for the Vols. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, The year is going to go by super fast. I like asking predictions. How do you think the OU is going to do in their first year in the SEC? Have you pay attention to some of the trash talk that happens? You live in Texas, so obviously you're stuck right in the middle of two fan bases who like to go after each other. So what's your prediction?
Well, I think they're going to do very well. I think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be exciting for them because it's different competition. And so, like with anything new, I think you're gonna face some challenges that you didn't know or expect.
Yeah.
But I easily see them having a really strong season. So I don't obviously some of the programs historically in the SEC that have dominated, I don't foresee them maybe having the same success with OU coming in. So I think they're going to do very well. I think you're going to see a lot of upsets like you did on Saturday with FSU and Georgia Tech.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's like the beginning drink was this past weekend. Seeing that, especially I'm Irish, so I love that game's in Ireland, and just seeing any of that stuff. So that just makes me happy. But
yes,
I so much appreciate you coming on and doing this.
Yeah, it's been great.
You have such an amazing family, and I appreciate what you've done. We're excited to have Sean here. I think I'm actually going to bring my son down in November when you guys play Denny. And
fantastic!
So I told him, I said, "Hey, listen, I'll probably try to get you in a picture." My son's he's autistic, and he's not a big football guy yet, but he was watching me play college football on the PlayStation yesterday, and I threw a touchdown pass, and he's like starts screaming and running around and getting
excited.
Nice. I was like, he's a stocky boy, so I'm kind of excited that maybe I can have my own parent interview in someday down the road. But thank you again for hopping in on here. And then, I always ask the parents to do it because, we know who the real UT is, and it's up in Knoxville. But
that's
can you just get a little one of these for the? There we go. Got to give us the
horns. I don't know how the camera is, so I'm showing my age. There you go.
That's all right. Well, again, Sonya Hutton, mother of Louisville 2025 offensive lineman Sean Hutton. Sonya, thank you so much. And
thank you. It's been great. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Well, if you guys made it this far, hop down in the comments. Let us know what you think about everything that you've heard of. Obviously, this is another great parent and another great kid coming into this program. So hit that like, hit the subscribe. And maybe if you see Sonya at the games in the future, stop by and say hey. So until next time.
All right. Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner.
That's right. Boomer Sooner.